quite a few people joining us today, so it's fun to see some familiar faces and some new people. There's Chloe, Shannon. Hi, Allison, Copier, welcome. Lo, I see you're on. Welcome, Bart, Lori, and Paul. While individuals are coming on, we want to welcome you. This is a monthly call that we do at Soul Salt. 1/3 of our work is to support people who are part of the Great Resignation. And prior to that, anyone who was feeling like they needed to change their occupation or where their job was taking them, or they needed to change a huge part of their career. You'll see Shannon Judge is on the call today. She's one of our career reinvention coaches from Soul Salt. Welcome. We're glad to have you here, Shannon. Today we have a guest speaker, Chloe Riley, who is in process of reinvention. So we'll get down and deep into her story soon. But those of you who are here, feel free to stay on mute. You're welcome to show your faces. You're welcome to ask questions in chat. Before we dive into talking to Chloe, I want to set up our topic today with her. And so the first thing I'm going to ask each of you to do is to go to chat and tell us what comes to mind when I say the word intermission. So go to chat and tell us what comes to your mind when you hear the word intermission. Welcome, Angela. It's good to have you here. Okay, we have a pause, we have a break. We have lots of breaks. A reset, a pause, taking a step back. Yep, yes, nice. Glad you are here, Angela. Okay, we have some commonality here. When I heard the word intermission, as I was preparing for this, I was thinking of what happens when you're at the ballet or a play. You can stand up, you can stretch, you can regroup, you can talk to your friends about what you're seeing and feeling and experiencing. You can run to the restroom, you can get a snack. That's where my brain went. It looks like you're more in step with one another with the pause and the break, the reset and the stepping back. So I want to tell you a story very quickly about John Alexander, who was a 44-year-old British investment banker. And John was not happy in what he was doing, and he was thinking about becoming a writer. He loved to write. And as he would talk to friends and neighbors, those of you who are in the reinvention process, you may have already experienced this. Boy, did he get different reviews. Some of the friends and neighbors were like, oh, wow, yeah, follow your passion. Other people were like, what? Like, you have a really good job. You're making good money. How can you possibly think about changing that and going into writing? Nobody makes money in writing. And John took an intermission. He took a break. He took a reset. He stepped back and he went to see an astrologer. Now, this is not how everybody takes an intermission. I don't see very many people writing that down, but that was his form of an intermission. And when he went to the astrologer, they literally advised him to go in the direction of his writing. So he did this very carefully. Being in reinvention, we are great champions of the notion of building a bridge and then going over it, instead of putting all your hopes and dreams that you will make it stuffed into a parachute and then jump out of some plane or off some building and hope you land softly with a wing and a prayer. Instead, we really have a time-tested, research-backed means for assisting you to cycle through different things so that you arrive on the other side of your reinvention without being bankrupt or destitute or just so sad that your parachute didn't open up like you had wished. So John was following this methodology. And what he did was he started writing a finance world thriller. And he wrote that and he accrued some PTO and enough PTO that eventually he could finish the thriller on a vacation. So he was writing on the side, and then he took a vacation, finished the thriller. He got a publisher, and he also sold the rights of the book to a film company called Universal Studios. And so he set himself up. And the thing that gave him the courage to do that was this pause, this intermission with the astrologer who said, oh, yeah, you should follow the writing. Today, he's a portfolio entrepreneur. He writes. He has a thing he calls, let me see exactly what he calls it, Master Prize. And Master Prize is an international competition for contemporary composers. And he got this, the BBC and the EMI, of course, John, remember he was in Great Britain, to sponsor his Master Prize competition. So he writes, he has this Master Prize competition, and he founded his own boutique investment bank. So he has three things going on. Think about a 3-ring circus. He decided he wanted to be a portfolio entrepreneur and have these three things going on. And that's how he earns a living and lives his life, by doing what inspires him, which is our mantra here at Soul Salt. So these unique intermissions are huge things to take. John's was just a visit to an astrologer. Today, we're going to hear about one that's a little more extended and doesn't involve tarot cards or astrology reading, right, Chloe? So Chloe, if you want to come off mute, those of you who maybe read her bio, Chloe is an exciting young talent that's here today. I had a chance to see short tell and long tell. So if there's any way to share that, maybe on social media, Chloe, you just have to see her cats. They're adorable. And indeed, one has a short tell, and you may have to look closely to know which one, but yes, you can find it out. So Chloe, I'm super, super interested in having you come on and telling us who you were. One of the constructs of reinvention is you have many possible selves. And I have been a teacher. I've been a real estate agent. I've been a writer. I've been a member of an innovation team. I have been a project manager. I've been an associate director of a PMO, project management office. I've been the director of innovation for Franklin Covey Coaching, and I am the founder of Soul Salt. And one of these days, I have a hope and dream to be a bestseller. So Chloe, our best-selling author. So Chloe, as you think about who you were, tell us, who were you in a previous life before you came into reading?
Well, first of all, and I can't wait for the best-selling author to get added to that list.
Thank you. And you're
gunning for that.
Thank you.
I really like that, of the things that you were. Let's see, I guess for me, the things that come to mind sort of most recently in my kind of career of the last 10 years were, I've been, I guess, a journalist, an SEO strategist, also, I guess, also a writer. And more recently, I guess I've been a podcaster and kind of audio producer. This word, or this phrase that keeps coming up, and came up the other day when I just redid my website, and which is digital maker. And maybe even digital maker is a phrase, but maybe even just maker, because it's kind of something I've been playing with that came up in kind of the redoing of this website. So yeah, what else? I guess I'm a digital strategist, social media, like digital media and social media strategist. I think in my bio it says something about like being a listener, an observer. Those things feel true. A meditator, pseudo monk, mini monk. I don't know. Trying to think all the things, but yeah, those are some things that come to mind.
That's quite the portfolio that you have of working identities. Welcome, Janie. And I'm curious, as you think about those identities, do you feel still connected to those, or have you sort of transitioned away from some and toward others?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say of all of those pieces, weirdly, the journalist piece is the one I feel the most sort of disconnected from, at least in the sense of the title of it, like the expectation around it or something, or at least the expectation I guess I have or had around it. Because I think even in, I keep pointing to the website because here I'm looking at it, but it's funny because even in the casting of the website, I still have some of my journalism writing up, but the way I've cast it is sort of like profiles of people, that it's about people, that people and their complexities are at the heart of every great story. And so in being a storyteller still now, that's the thing that I think I always connected with as a journalist. I absolutely loved, being out in the world, running around, talking to people, getting to drop in people's lives and meet them and shake their hand. That was the piece I loved the most about that. And I think I've carried that piece with me. So I guess the things I don't miss are, like, I think a couple years ago, Lynn, even before, Lynn, you and I, or maybe right around the same time you and I started working together, I had made a decision that I was no longer going to take on any freelance assignments that were writing based. So if somebody was like, oh, hey, I've got an opportunity, write 500 words and, it's going to be this much for the day, I just said, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm only focusing on the social media stuff. And I'm saving my writing brain for just my own personal projects. And that was, I felt really good about that decision. And it's in the sense that, Lynn, you and I have talked about like the idea of mapping, creating these little like maps that kind of tell you things about yourself. And for me, that was a little piece of map, like, okay, I don't do this anymore. So if anybody ever throws that opportunity that, my way, I just automatically know, nope, no, sorry, I'm not doing that anymore, but thank you. And that's been that was a very good shift to make in terms of being able to prioritize my own writing and my own stuff.
So you use it as a map, like a filter, to tell you, no, it's not on my map. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So in this transition, in your reinvention, you're doing something that everyone will have to do if you reinvent, is you have to determine which of your possible selves you don't lean into anymore, so that you can make room for doing something bigger, better, bolder in the future. We don't have to make the past the villain or a bad person, oh, I was bad for doing that. We can simply acknowledge it and say it was part of my journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's open up to where you are now. I know that Shannon's made it so that you can share. And why don't you take us on a story of what you're currently doing, and maybe you can tie that with the possible selves that you're currently expressing, and then also tuck in there when it's the appropriate time, because I'm not going to tell you how to tell your story. Tuck it in there when you're ready to tell us how this topic that we started with today, when we discussed intermission, and those of you who didn't get a chance, you can look in the chat. We tried to define what an intermission is, because we're talking today about taking intermissions in the process of reinvention. So Chloe, if you can tie that into the story, that would be super.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I sure can tie that intermission in, Lynn.
Yeah, I thought
Sure
you
can.
might be able to. Awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and what I'm going to walk you guys through very briefly is I'm actually going to start with, I pulled up so I have a personal website that's kind of used to be the place for you to house here are my journalism stories, here's how you can contact me, here's a picture of me and about. So I'm going to show you actually the old one, which I've got the Wayback Machine pulled up here so you can see the old one, and then I'll transition to the one I just worked on the other day. I'm feeling really proud of and really good about. It feels very aligned with who I am now. Let's see, can you guys all see, Lynn, can you see that?
We can see that, yes, we can see your cute
big
face.
Black and white photo of my
Yes.
face. So this is the site, my old site. And this is like an older photo. This specific screen grab is from 2020. So this is Lynn, like right before you and I started working together, a few months actually. So this is, I feel like, a good snapshot. And I won't click on all these because I think I'm not sure if they will be active, but you get the gist. At the time, it was like kind of narrative. So like, my journalism stuff, opinion writing, which I had been doing, for the Chicago Reader at the time, a lot more of that. Contact, I had like a little blog I was linking to. And then, what I was focusing on here more at the time I think I was still working for an SEO firm, wasn't really happy with that work. And I was trying to position myself to start, being my own, like tiptoeing into the waters of having my own company, maybe some kind of, doing some consulting work or something like that. So this is kind of how I was trying to position the site, but it was not, it was not super thought out. I just kind of wanted something. So I was kind of trying to say, oh, over my journalism career, I've did all these things, and that has helped me, to, do this kind of digital strategy work. And then I kind of listed, okay, these are the things I kind of am trying to get into. But anyway, so this is, it's just a snapshot, right? Like there's nothing really wrong with this site. There are things that could be better about it, but it just feels to me, knowing it, like such a snapshot of like, oh, that's what 2020 looked like. Or obviously you can see the date here, right? Like right before the pandemic too. I got laid off right before the pandemic. So I got laid off maybe like a week after this snapshot. And that was very painful and scary. And Lynn and I started working together not long after that. So to me, this just feels like such a snapshot in time. I remember exactly what I was trying to do. I remember a lot of uncertainty about the right steps to take next, about, tiptoeing into the waters of starting my own company. Hadn't even gotten close to that at all yet at this stage, was just kind of sniffing around. So now this same site, this is what this looks like today. And this is very, very new. Whoa. Right, so like right off the bat, you can see there's color, there's video. This is a GIF I made from the Alive Hour, which is the audio podcast that I started in last July, and this came out of an experiment with Lynn. So this is the new landing page, and then right now I just have this little tiny thing as like a placeholder. This might get expanded, or might not. So it says, what does it mean to tell a great story offline and on? My background as a journalist and digital strategist has led me to where I'm now, a maker of things, both offline and on. It's got some little emojis because that's how I communicate. And so I thought that would be fun. And it feels like me to have that. So then if you can see, even just going from here, right? Like the things I was doing before were journalism and some opinion writing. And now I've added, I've got this tab, I've got it open right here. So I've added an audio and podcasting tab. And so I've got the link to the Alive Hour, which is a Substack kind of like audio journey. I've said here, it's an audio journey about what it means to be alive. It's about listening, hearing, and finding healing through hearing your own voice. And then this other podcast that I worked on in I think 2020 as well, in 2020. This is a podcast called F Cancer. It was created with my cousin who at the time was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which he would ultimately pass away from. It's almost a year to date now that he passed away. But he had reached out to me and said, hey, I'd really love to do something creative. I really want to talk about what's happening for me in this journey. And so we co-hosted a podcast together and co-created this podcast. And it was, very meaningful, at times difficult, but very rewarding thing to do together. So I have this tab now, that absolutely did not exist. It didn't even exist. This tab didn't exist, a few days ago. And then my about, now looks like this. And again, this feels, this feels so much more in line with who I am now, and kind of who I've become. This is this little illustration from being on Substack and making the show. They reached out to me about, hey, can we include you in this profile of people, why writers are making their home on Substack. And so then, they made a little cartoon in my head for this story. And it's linked to the Alive Hour. But that, also felt just like, that felt like the right thing to include. And then I still have my writing and opinion stuff because I still feel like that's a part of me and I want to have that represented. But then, yeah, even this, contact page, let's light the way to your perfect narrative. This GIF as well is a GIF from the Alive Hour. And so it's just, it was a real joy. I don't think people often say that it was a real joy to put together, work on a website. I know that that's a thing that I often avoid. And the other day I just felt very inspired. Like I felt like, to Lynn's point about taking the step back, taking the intermission. I was putting out the live hour every week since last July, and I paused, I think it was sometime in early April. So it's been about a month that I've taken a pause from it, just because I just hadn't paused, and it was occurring to me I had put out kind of 2 seasons, and wanted to sort of like, okay, I need to take a step back. There's kind of a lot here. I want to think about what's working, what do I like, what are people responding to. Posting once a week felt like it was getting to be too much, in addition to having a full-time kind of work. So just thinking about like, okay, what maybe looking at what's like a more realistic schedule to start publishing on. But even just in this space of having downtime, I feel like this website got put together, and this wasn't something I had the brain space to think about before. And in that same idea of mapping yourself, or kind of mapping your insides on the outside, I hadn't even thought about, I feel like I've been so in it, like doing the work, and okay, I got to get an episode out every week. And, I actually did start a digital strategy company, which I have linked here at the bottom, which is up here. So, I started this company. And so I feel like I was, hadn't had time to really take a step back and think like, okay, what is the commonality of all these things? Like what is it that I'm doing? What do I want to be doing? I put all this work into doing all these things. But now what direction do I want them to go in? What things do I want to give more time to and maybe less time to the other things? Or, I have a lot of questions, even about the audio and podcasting. Like I have questions about, where do I want the live hour to go? I also have questions about F cancer, and I have some recordings from my cousin that I haven't put up yet, but I'm wondering about that. Wondering if F cancer can become some other vehicle for other people, family stories about, families that are going through terminal illness. So I want more, I feel like I just identified, even just putting all this stuff up together, like, oh, this is kind of what I do now. Like I like the words digital storyteller, like the phrase digital maker, even, and so I think, yeah, I think it's just been taking this, and I think to the point of taking the intermission, I certainly had not had the thought in the last couple of months, I need to redo my website. For some reason that has not been a priority, and taking this pause even has allowed me to think, oh, like, yeah, I wanted to redo this, and in the redoing of it, I'm learning about myself and who I am, what I've been doing, and kind of, it's almost like giving me information about what I should be looking at next.
So that brings me to a question. In this intermission, it sounds like there was such a creative microburst of energy that got channeled into a new identity being portrayed, or maybe an extension of old identities that are now being upgraded in this website. What do you feel like your identity is now that you've been through this cathartic little intermission?
Wow, yeah, that's a good question, Lynn. That's a good one. Oh man, I don't know. I feel like, the honest answer to that question is more one of the things that, Lynn, you and I kind of identified when I took this pause, which is almost not connected to work at all. It's almost not connected. I mean, it's not connected to any of this, but some of the things I was identifying and taking the pause were like, oh, I'm a planner. I'm a physical notebook planner. Like that was something that I realized I've been keeping a planner, a physical planner now since 2020. and I love it. Never did that before, really. I've been using, Google Calendar. I still use Google Calendar, but I have a planner. And even in doing the Alive Hour the last couple months, I had been neglecting, my planner. And I was like, oh no, that is not okay. That is a part of me that really, like, that's very important for me to do that work. And it really helps me feel grounded. In that same spirit, like I'm a vitamin taker. I'm a brusher and flosser every morning. Seriously, like these are the things about me that when I do these things, I feel really good in my life. I meditate on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and I'm really trying for Sundays. I've been making more time for doing morning pages, just kind of sitting down to do 10 minutes of writing. Those are things that actually had all started getting neglected, once I was in the fray of like, got to turn out the Alive Hour, got to do all the other work. And actually those pieces, like getting reconnected to those pieces has probably been one of the healthiest things in terms of revealing my own identity to me at this time. There's this stuff too. Obviously this stuff's important. I would say the Alive Hour has taught me I'm a letter writer. I like to sit down and physically write letters to people. That was something I did at the beginning of the Alive Hour. Sat down and said, okay, we're going to skip the next 2 episodes. I'm going to write everybody who signed up so far a poem collage letter as an experiment. But yeah, it's very much those kinds of things. So I would say the most important things I'm seeing are, that I'm a tactile person, that these like actually grounding into the physical world via, these rituals or these routines. That's a very important things for me. And I would say, and then I say, I know I keep coming back to this website, but it really does feel like something that, this looks so different to me than this. This looks, by comparison, so much colder and static, and it's all online. It's barely moving. It feels barely alive. And this feels so alive. And this is a thing that, I was cutting out things and setting them up and moving them around and getting my hands dirty in them. And this feels so much more like a reflection of who I am. And it also feels like a roadmap for what I'm supposed to be doing or where I should be going next. Like it feels like clues in that direction.
That's really well said. So the intermission has given you more clarity about who you are now and what you can do in the future. And I think if you could just go to the writing, I want the audience to see this. One thing that touches me, because I can relate to this, is the visual thinking that's going on. I'm such a visual thinker as well. And if you look at this, these are the things that she's written about. And what I noticed when I went through your site is I have to click on the picture. The picture is what really gets my attention. And then I get to see the article that you wrote, right?
Yeah.
And it was just charming to be able to say, okay, which picture is drawing me in? And then that tells me which of your articles I want to read. And I was so impressed with Mr. Longlegs and how tall his bike is, since I'm less tall. I thought that was amazing. And Chloe, now that you've had this intermission, what clarity do you act on? What are a couple of next steps? You don't need to know too far in advance because you're still in the reinvention process. And one thing I should say before you answer that for our listeners, we've mentioned this a little bit. Our methodology at Soul Salt, I'll give it to you for free today. It's part of our secret sauce, is not to put all your hopes and dreams in a parachute pack and then jump and hope that you land in some job, maybe just quit and just go land. That's usually not the most advantageous way to reinvent. A few people do that successfully. Most people don't. More prudence in the reinvention path would be a path of what Chloe's doing. She's building. So you're earning a living right now. Chloe Strategies is earning you a living and giving you free time to do your own creative processes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to make that point before you answered the previous question.
Yeah. No, it's a great point, because this company is something I started a year ago, almost also to the date right now, is when I started this company. That mostly is kind of a combination of like social media strategy, kind of sales funnels, and some user experience, kind of like a, kind of a bundle of things. But yeah, this is primarily how I've been earning a living the last year.
Yeah. So earn
Yeah,
while
so
you learn what that future is going to be.
yes. And to your point, in terms of next steps, well, one of the next steps is I'm going to attend. This has been a goal of mine for years, and I am finally doing it. And I am paying for myself to go do it. Previously it was like, oh, can I get my employer to sponsor me? And it was always like, no, we don't have the money. And now, I'm paying for myself to go. I'm really excited. I'll be attending, it's called Confab, and it's in Minneapolis. It's next week, and it's a content, like a content conference. So talking about, what is content now? Where is content heading? What is the future of it? What's new? What's on the horizon? And that gets me very jazzed. I'm going to be attending it with a good friend who our paths crossed. I'm a graduate of Columbia College Chicago, and our paths crossed there. But she is also kind of like in a, and has been in a storytelling, both right now she's doing kind of storytelling for a larger medical company. But then simultaneously, she also has kind of a side business that's a photography business. And she's a supporter of the Alive Hour. We click on many levels. So I'm going to get to spend the next week about 4 or 5 days with her, and we're going to attend this content conference. And so I'm very excited about that, and I feel very open to, soaking that up and allowing that to be, partly an influence, and seeing what germs of ideas I've picked up there, and just from talking to her, I'd like to bounce some of these ideas off her about direction, and then. Yeah, and then I, even this weekend, I have a plan to sit down, and I've already had another weekend recently where I sat down and really wrote out, like, what is the Alive Hour? Like, just kind of stream of consciousness, wrote down everything that I think it is, or the elements of it I think that are most important. And so I'm going to sit with those themes again this weekend, and kind of play around maybe visually, with, okay, what is this thing now? What could it be? Maybe come up with like a plan to tune in with, some of my most connected people who are the paid subscribers of the Alive Hour, and just see, hey, what do you guys think? Or what's been working? Here's kind of the direction I think I might go in. So those are a couple next steps, at least with regard to that. That feels like the thing that's the most on my mind right now.
Those are really clear next steps. And I could see even how the weekend and this content seminar, or whatever it is that I don't know what we call those nowadays as we go back live with people, conference, that you're taking some more intermission. So would you mind popping off from sharing this and putting it in the chat?
Yes.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to invite anyone to come on. We have illustrator Erin Blute here. We have writer Janie Gabbett here. We have coach Shannon Judge here. We have pole dancer and movement instructor Angela here. I can see some of you, I know what you do currently. So if any of you have questions, comments, some of you have reinvented, and so you're watching. If there's anything that you want to ask of Chloe, or a comment that you want to make, this is your chance. We'd love to hear from you. And feel free to just come off mute, and we'll watch, and I'll try to be courteous and see who was first to come off of mute. And I can see now the Chloe's, yeah, Shannon, go ahead. I can see the link is in the chat now.
Hi, Chloe. Thank you so much for sharing. It was really awesome to hear all the details of the way that you're earning while you're learning, and your creative outlets. I guess I'm curious, in terms of reinvention with your strategy company, is that something that is nourishing you and that you're excited about and going to continue with, or is that a possible self?
That's a good question. Yes, I think I actually do. I've asked myself that question, and if only from the perspective of, like, oh, I really like the other things to grow. And does that mean, does the digital company have to shrink a little bit? And that could be a possibility, but no, I really do jive with like, I don't know, just like watching the metrics of social media and the real time feedback of like what's working, what's resonating, kind of the experimentation that comes with it, like testing things with an audience, figuring out, who the different audiences are. That stuff actually does stimulate me in a way that feels like it could be something that stays potentially.
Excellent.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good question.
Yeah, Bart, I'm with you. Chloe does that integration you're talking about in chat. Yep.
Okay, I have a question.
Let's take
Hi,
Erin.
Erin.
and then-
Hi,
and
Erin.
Janie.
Hi.
Oh.
Okay, so I have been following what you've been doing for a while, obviously. And your Chloe thing just inspires me to like beyond greatness. I have this thing that I'm working really hard putting out there, manifesting, that I want to do with my art. I actually want to host and have travel art retreats. That's like my big pie in the sky thing. Because I've grown as an artist in the last like year and a half in a really big way, but I am so scared about how to go from where I am right now to my big pie in the sky dream. How did you take the leap to find a way of how to supplement your income and work on what you want? Where did you find the balance?
That's a great question. So practical as well.
That is a great question. I'm like trying to rewind my brain. Let me think about this. I feel like, honestly, Erin, like really, there was a day that feels like a real moment in time. And it certainly isn't that then from that moment on things were easy in any way, because they definitely were not. But there really was a moment, I remember it really clearly, where I just, it was probably January of last year, 2021. And I remember having a day where I just said, it was like this big feeling of like, no more, like I'm doing it and whatever that looks like. And I remember I was like, okay, the thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to start emailing colleagues of mine and I'm going to say, hey, I really want to start doing some more serious like consulting work, I think around social media. Who can you connect me to? And I remember talking to my old boss maybe like a day or two later, but literally this one woman who I swear to God, she's a connection that I met on a plane. We became friends on a plane, and she's, probably 30 years my senior, but we just clicked so much. And, and she's a journalist and I was a journalist at the time, and we just kept in touch. And absolutely, I texted her to catch up and told her what I was interested in. And she was like, oh my God, I have to connect you with my rich uncle who's in his 80s and he's trying to do social media and you need to help him. And I was like, okay, yes. Like, yes, I want to talk to the rich uncle who's trying to do social media. But that was terrifying, meaning like that became something. But I mean, just taking that step and that first client, even of like someone who I really didn't know personally, it was like a connection of a connection. I mean, I was like every day and almost every minute of every day, I had so much doubt and so much fear. And every time I got on a call, it was just like, oh, I'm going to get fired. Yeah, I'm just going to get fired. That's it. We're getting on this call so they can say, yeah, no, this isn't going to work out. And that never happened. I threw out one of the largest numbers I've ever thrown out or have ever thrown out in terms of what I wanted to be paid. And he said yes to it. And that step of just doing that, yeah, seriously, but it was terrifying. And it is still somewhat terrifying, but it's never been as terrifying as the first couple clients that I had to just like bite the bullet and just say, I don't feel comfortable with this and I'm just going to do it and, and hope for the best. But it really was like a moment and working through a lot of fear. And as Lynn knows, that has been almost the entire past year of starting this company and doing the Alive Hour has been working through a lot of doubt and a lot of fear. So it's only now that I'm feeling, or maybe not only now, but it's been a progression And then now today I can say I feel more grounded and more stable. But I think it's come from, having a whole year under the belt of doing this and making it work. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it did feel like a starting place, that there was really a decision, and it just like kind of leaping into it a little bit. So that's kind of where I was coming from.
Yeah, that I can attest to that. Those of you who are looking at what Chloe's doing, it wasn't just, oh, this is so fun and creative, I want to do this. There was fear in what if I do, and I am vulnerable if I share this. The Alive Hour is one of the most vulnerable things you've done. And so putting yourself out there for people to see you and hear you in a way that I don't think people typically communicate. The Alive Hour, if you haven't seen it, you need to go out and experience it so you know what we're talking about. Chloe did all of that despite fear. So I'm glad you asked that question, Erin, because it's not about being fearless. It's about having fear less and less and courage more and more.
Can I say one follow-up to that, Erin, too? Because there were some real physical things that came along with it. I didn't know it at the time, meaning I didn't, 2021, whatever. But I mean, there were things I feel like I had done leading up to that moment that helped me as well. Physical things, like I started working with a financial planner in 2018, and I got my credit cards down to zero. And that was probably in 2020 then. And then was starting, had built up some savings so that when 2020 hit and I got laid off, it wasn't, oh God, I'm in a really terrible place. And now this on top of that, I had worked for years before that to get to a place where I was okay. And then also I moved out to Woodstock, from Chicago, a bigger city, to Woodstock, much smaller city town. And that was in July of 2020. And literally just that move, that was a very hard identity crisis thing to go through as well, because I had lived in Chicago for 13 years. But I am so glad I did that. And it took a lot to do that too. But literally even just that, lower cost of living, I feel like I can support myself. It was easier to start a company. So there were some real things in addition to, taking that step, that I feel like I had laid a foundation to be able to take that step.
Boy, I'm so glad you mentioned those, Chloe, because getting your act together really saves you sometimes, doesn't it? And if the pandemic taught us anything, get your shit in a pile, get your act together, get your needs met early. Janie, what's your question or the comment?
I think I just had a comment because Chloe has just become such a hero of mine. And we were colleagues in the old days when she was a journalist, and watching her, the courage of what she's done. And it's been really inspiring to me, because I'm someone who struggles with perfectionism and can't imagine, doing anything till I've got it, A+. And that Alive Hour is so fabulous, but I saw you just throw it out there and let it evolve. And that was such an inspiring thing to watch. The other thing I really heard in what you said is all the things that you've done to keep yourself grounded enough to take all these risks. I was, hearing you talk about, taking vitamins, meditating, writing morning pages, all these things, they sound small, but they're huge in terms, I think, of giving you that base to do all this, brave things from. And I also just want to say, I love the comparison, and thank you, of the websites, because it's just night and day. And it's just, they're both good, but that's such a visual marker for me. And you really made me think about, a map and where I'm going. So thank you. Sorry, I didn't have a question, just a comment.
No, Janie, we'll take your comments anytime. Anytime. Janie is a reinventor. She's reinvented more than once. And so your comment, I feel like, holds a lot of merit, Janie. Thank you for that. You want to say anything to Janie's comment, Chloe?
Yes, thank you, Janie. Seriously though, no, you're picking up all the things that are, the comparison visually of the sites really it strikes me a lot too. And yes, absolutely what you're saying, the little things, even just ignoring them more in the last couple of months, you know, it's occurred to me how actually that's very, very vital work in order to even be able to do or try to do some of this other work. So, and
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And next time you two are having coffee together at Ethereal, I want another picture. Because you guys
Oh,
live
yeah, yeah.
close enough that if you want to match up for coffee, you can. It's a bit of a drive, but you can do it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I am so glad that those of you who joined us came today so that you could hear at least a couple of stories. Erin, you've reinvented yourself, you know, and now the artist and the illustrator are big parts of your identity. And so you're seeing and hearing from people who are actually doing it. You don't have to be alone. I know you don't feel like sometimes you're alone because there are massive amounts of people in the reinvention process right now. The big thing I'm telling you today is you don't have to be unsupported. And having that support is like taking the vitamins and the meditation and getting the rest and knowing that you're not alone and that you don't have to know where you're going in reinvention. You just have to know that you're willing to do it. And the process that we support you through here at Soul Salt assists you to find out where you're going. All you have to know is it's time to reinvent, and we will be there for you. And on that note, Shannon Judge, I'm going to ask you to drop your contact information. If you would like a free discovery call to talk further about something you've heard, please connect with Shannon Judge below. And then you're more than welcome to go out to soulsalt.com, soulsalt.com, and look at our reinvention offerings that are online there too. So without further ado, we know you have lives to get back to, and yet you know in your heart of hearts that you showed up today for a reason. You're not crazy. And this is probably one of the most exciting times that you could reinvent because there are new opportunities coming up every day. You can see Janie nodding her head. Every day, the thing that you might be doing in the future may have just dropped into your lap tomorrow, and it may not have existed before. So with that little bit of hope, I'm glad that you joined us. Chloe, thank you. Thanks to those who made contact today by commenting, and we hope to see you next month on our next reinvention call. Take good care, everyone.
All right, thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.